to always respect all others. I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to always let out of me all that wants out of me. I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to always let in me all that wants in me. I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to always be happy about my relationships with women. I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to be happy about donna. I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to be happy about this recording. And as I've said before I started the recording, I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to always desire only what logic desires for me. I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to always desire only what God desires for me. No thinking required, relax. This is the story of creation. Here the question by answers. The law of attraction, if followed correctly, elevates you to the status of a god. Create your own reality. We're not talking helpful psychological attitudes here, but material creation. According to Bern, your thoughts become things. Each one of us, she exhorts, is the locus for an infinite power of creation, or adding in the auspices of AH source, you're co-creating with the universe. Gosh, feels good, doesn't it? This is above all a set of infantilizing feel-good books, which persuasively bypass any critical thinking. No, honey, I would argue that you're bypassing critical thinking here, because you're encountering a gap which for you is becoming an abyss. If we're not co-creating the universe, then who is? The problem lies in the fact that we're all co-creating the universe. Look at the cells in your body. Wouldn't you find it absurd if somebody went to tell a cell in your body that that cell is not co-creating you? However, the abyss that I'm talking about is where the scientists have realized that if you're going to look at an atom, they encounter quantic positions, meaning that the atom, the photon, or the subatomic particle, what they've discovered with quantic theory, with quantic analysis, is that and I've addressed this in a long playlist, which is, I think you can find it through the shaman page or the dictionary, but that there's only so many distinct and discrete positions where at the instant that we're looking at that subatomic particle is going to be. It's like saying if you're looking at a ruler, that subatomic particle is either going to be on the 1-inch mark or the 4-inch mark or the 11-inch mark, but it's not going to be anywhere in between. And whereas a lot of people go into multiverses and they're infinite universes all the time, what the quantum experiment shows us is that of all the possibilities, those are it. In other words, there's my computer, there's my grapefruit juice in my hand, there's everything that we perceive in reality, and at any given instant, in order for every single thing in the universe, this abyss that we gotta deal with when we understand that we are co-creating the universe. At that moment, for everything in the universe to be compatible, the only possible way is either that subatomic particle is going to be on the 1-inch notch, or it's going to be on the 8-inch notch, or it's going to be on the 11-inch notch, but it's impossible for it to be in any other one of those in between. It's sort of a series of either ors, but they're discrete. And that's why it seems like an insurmountable abyss and a childish thing to say that we're co-creating the universe. And when you're engaging in the law of attraction, what's happening is not necessarily that it's your fault in our modern sense that you're wishing for love and you get, your house burns down, and the way that you're paraphrasing Hicks, the Hickses, they're saying, oh, you actually asked for the house to be burned down. What it is, if you're going to look at that from the perspective that I'm coming from, it could be that you are asking for love, but you have an unconscious that is connected to everything, and that it be there's something in the universe that necessitates, whether it's a ghost appearance or your house burning down, for somebody that doesn't have anything to do with ghosts, but it's like, God, I studied the law of attraction. I sat there and I wished there for love, and my house burned down. There were no ghosts, there were no poltergeists, but my house burned down. And if you take the theory that yes, we are co-creating the universe, the reason that you could argue that she created that fire is that in her ignorance of everything else, the universe is letting her know you cannot have love, which is what Donna Hazel is saying. You cannot be well unless everybody is well. And it's like, dude, wake up. Yeah, we want to send you love, but there's something in line between you and love. What's between you and love is something that is an illness in the universe right now, because honey, you're not the only one with an illness. The universe is an illness. And much as you don't know how much sympathy and care I feel for you, trust me, but the fact of the matter is that somebody that goes to the law of attraction and she says, I want love, and then she gets her house burned down. Or somebody such as yourself who says that all these good things about the world should be well, and you've got your intentions, etc., 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 about goodness, and you get tinnitus or whatever it's called in your ear. Or me, that's been suicidal, and it's like in 51 years, I had standing ovations almost, and people that wanted autographs, and I was featured in the newspapers that we're talking about 20 to 25 years ago. They were gonna consider me for the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics and so on and so forth, and now I'm a pariah. I walked the earth. I left the career 25 years ago, and I went through 7 years of suffering recently and wanted to kill myself and all that, even though I had food and shelter. But the pain that I experienced, it's the universe telling us. For me, it manifests itself with the fact that there's not one woman on earth that will talk with me on a continuous basis. For you, it manifests itself with your illness. For the woman that went to the law of attraction and wanted love and it burned their house down, it manifests through that. But it's kind of like if there's a cell in your body, if there's a cell in your body that is co-creating you, and you are that cell's galaxy, if not that cell's universe, and it wants to be well, it's got to deal with all the other cells. And these other cells have got to deal with everything outside of Donna, and all these things that we don't understand. I mean, it goes above and beyond ghosts. Ghosts are the way that the cosmos manifests certain things to you, just like the taxi is another way that the cosmos, everything in the universe is a manifestation of the universe. And you may have a part of your body that's healthy, but there's another part of your body that's like, wake up. You can't be healthy until something else is healthy. So the law of attraction, and somebody, having a horrible experience after going to the law of attraction, is not, it's not the conclusive thing to assume that because you go to the law of attraction and you have a traumatic experience, to assume that that is the conclusion of their quest is mistaken. The life is not over, and the life of the individual and the life of the universe is not over. So when you write stuff such as, gosh, feels good, doesn't it, with your irony, this is one of the queens that you were talking about in your queen cards, although you're still a lot more balanced than most trolls, but no, you lose it here, honey. You're losing it here. And I do the same thing. And arguably, maybe I'm doing that with you here. I use it to be a lot worse than you. That's why I'm doing a mantra where I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to always respect others, because it's dawned on me after 51 years that I don't respect others, maybe. I thought I was the most caring and thoughtful person. It's like, no, maybe I have never respected others. So trust me, the way that I have vented about in good faith thinking that others were doing something stupid or wrong and is especially harmful is so much less respectful and more stupid than you're saying, gosh, feels good, doesn't it? This is above all a set of infantilizing feel-good books. Okay, this is the way people talk about Donald Trump when they haven't watched 14 seasons of The Apprentice. They judge and they lose all their professional ability to we're human, thank God, but it's like, it's not infantilizing to think that we're co-creating the universe. But what it does is it takes wisdom and practice and understanding of the things that you are addressing and that I'm addressing, and that I'm sure that the Hickses and Byrne would address too. But yes, we are co-creating the universe. So if I am analyzing the text and there's somebody that says we are co-creating the universe, and somebody that says that the sentence we are co-creating the universe bypasses any critical thinking, there is no question in my mind that the one that's bypassing any critical thinking is the one that's saying that it's bypassing critical thinking to say that we are co-creating the universe. But every subatomic particle has to deal with every single subatomic particle. And the scientist that's looking at a subatomic particle doesn't even have the power to see to it that that photon or electron or whatever will go here as opposed to there, because that's ultimately the measure of free will from a physical perspective. The free will that the electron or the subatomic particle has is limited to not free will. Okay, the execution. As I say in the dictionary, free will is the ability to prefer. But in terms of executing, achieving your creation of the universe, if that subatomic particle is trying to, has read the law of attraction, if that subatomic particle has read the law of attraction and it's wishing to create their own idea of their universe with what they ask with their law of attraction, the subatomic particle is going to find out, oh, you know what? There's no getting around the fact that there's going to be a scientist looking at me, and that because of all the energies and everything that's out there, there's the only impact that I can make in the universe as a subatomic particle is either I'm going to be on the 1-inch notch or the 4-inch notch or the 11-inch notch. And those are my only real choices in terms of how I can create the universe. So the contribution of that subatomic particle is to choose between the 1-inch notch, the 4-inch notch, or the 11-inch notch. And much as it wished for something else in law of attraction, it only has those, because just as the scientist is looking at the subatomic particle, the subatomic particle is like, whoa, I'm looking at the scientist looking at me. And instantaneously, contemporaneously, it necessitates there's a nucleus here, there's a microscope here, there's a lab here, there's a country here, there's an earth here, there's a galaxy here, there's everything. And because of there's everything, the subatomic particle can wish all it wants, but it'll exercise its free action based on its free will, where it's like, okay, the universe that I can create is either a universe in which at this instant I'm going to be on the 1-inch notch, or I'm going to be on the 8-inch notch, or I'm going to be on the 11-inch notch. That's my choice of creating the universe, but it doesn't mean that I'm not co-creating the universe. Is that you're not, it's kind of like you're blind to seeing that the sentence is co-creating the universe. That co in the verb co-creating the universe is a portal. It's bigger than a black hole, because co-creating doesn't mean that, you know, the three of us are co-creating it. It means that everything is co-creating the universe. Now, the difference between a subatomic particle identified as such and Donald Trump identified as such and Donna Hazel identified as such is that, and the earth identified as such, there's only so much the earth can do. It might take it billions of years, but right now it's in a situation where part of it is pulling this way, part of it is pulling that way, so it's orbiting around the sun. Although it's changing, there's only so much that Donald Trump can do as a human being in the context that he is. There's only so much a subatomic particle can do as a subatomic particle in the context that that subatomic particle is. There's only so much that you can do, there's only so much that I can do. Obviously, to think, you know, you've got something that there's no cure for right now that prevents you maybe from even anything, prevents you from, you're ill, you're very ill. And you're like, how can I co-create the universe if I can't even co-create if I can't even deal with this illness, how can I cook and how can I co-create the universe if there's I cannot find one single woman to talk with on a continuous basis? I can't even do that. I can't even get over the depression of not having a single woman, healthy woman to talk with, or a single woman to talk with in a healthy relationship. I can't even get over the depression. I mean, but I am, because I'm aligning all my cells and all my subatomic particles to understand that I'm part of the universe. But in terms of identity, I identify myself as I. And I want all of I to do what's good for me, hence the mantras, hence my mantras. My mantras are very careful with the words that I choose. My words are compatible with the other words that I wrote, and they have a priority, a hierarchy. They start from a principle of non-contradiction, which is what the subatomic particle has to deal with. They start from a belief that everything in the universe tends to well-being. They start from a belief that for any entity to truly be well, everything else needs to be well. They start from an understanding that from a human perspective, while it may seem unthinkable that we're going to reach a stage where, oh yeah, everybody's fine. Not only the Israelis and the Palestinians, but everybody in the Andromeda galaxy is fine. And the gazelle that's eaten by the lion is fine. And the animals that are in the animal farm are fine. It may seem inconceivable, but to give up on that is actually flies in the face of the fact that every single atom in the gazelle that's eaten by the lion and the animal that's stuck in the animal farm and the Palestinians and the Israelis and everything is trying to be well, and that it is our duty to try to be well and doing our reasonable best. Because the thing is that if you think, oh, I'm never going to be well, because how can the whole universe be well when we've got the Israelis and the Palestinians and I can't even take care of my fucking tinnitus or whatever that's called? No, the fact of the matter is that we're human beings, we're individuals, and we can measure things. And we can, just like the subatomic particle can measure and say, I can be on this notch or that notch, nowhere in between, or that other notch, but those are my 3 or 4 choices. We can say, okay, what is it that I can do that is the most effective and efficient way for me in this context that I am, with my illness or with the Palestinians or with the Israelis or with the animal farmers or whatever? What is it that I can do that is the most effective and efficient way for me to be well, with an understanding that ideally I want to do it without, if I can do it without hurting somebody else, I will. But if there's a collateral damage, that is not my intention. Because if I'm a lion and I need to eat a gazelle, I'm convinced that when the gazelle gets caught, the gazelle actually becomes one with God, and there's a moment of understanding of that. The lion is not out statistically to hurt the gazelle. So an inner peace is somewhere, everywhere to be found in us at some point. And the most intelligent thing that we can do is to understand that we're part of the larger universe, and at the same time to measuring our reality. I mean, measuring our abilities and our context in which we can do what we can do. And in that process, we are co-creating the universe. Let's go to, instead of this article, let's look at some of the things where you're looking at some cards. Okay. As I told you, I okay. Let's see. Card meanings, majors, the Hermit. The Hermit card, philosopher, therapist. You're looking at the Tarot Illuminati. What's the first thought that strikes you when you look at the Hermit card? He's alone. Often depicted wandering in a foresty wilderness or even a starkly barren and inhospitable semi-Arctic landscape. We already know that this card is going to be about being alone and removed from the everyday familiar. But why? I'm going to have a dialogue as we're doing this. Part of the reason you're saying that is that, I mean, it's very important that you look at the RoboCop card and my analysis of the RoboCop card, because as humans, we are trained to immediately recognize the figure and seeing that it stands alone. But we are forgetting the rest of the universe. Somebody that does not have a human perspective might not even see the hermit, would not recognize it as an individual. If they were to focus in on it'd just be shapes and colors. So they would be looking at the hermit card. Let me take a picture of this. Screenshot time. All right. Okay. Okay, so I'm a hermit coming from outer. I'm some entity from outer space. I don't know what humans look like. I don't have any cultural and imagery framework. I see this card. Obviously, I don't recognize things such as mountains. I don't recognize things such as a beard. I don't recognize things such as an individual. I don't recognize things such as the moon. So I see a rectangular shape that has mostly blues and grays, with some particularly standing out yellows and a bit of an orange. I noticed that the border around the image in the center card is black, and there's quite, whereas the image in the rectangle has a lot of blacks. It also has, like I said, preponderance of blues and whites plus the yellow and goldish streaks, whereas the black border only has two fundamental colors. It's a black background, and it's got oranges that are reminiscent of the yellows uh, in the card, which obviously stand out color-wise more than anything else. And in fact, the yellow is similar to the orange, and the orange is at the very corner of the quote-unquote blue and white image in the rectangle. And in the upper left corner, if I'm looking at it from this direction, um, uh, the orange is very similar. The one that's closest to the corner is the part that's actually orange, although there's orange and even red in the yellow areas. But the orange is the only one presence of the color in the black border, except for this other thing that if I don't know how to read, and I don't know that it says Nine the Hermit, I can certainly see that in the black border, you've got two elements in addition to the black. You have got these streaks of bronze, orange type of thing, which are reminiscent of the colors that actually stand out above and beyond everything else in the colors in the inside image. But I can also see that similar to those colors, in fact, similar to the yellow, there are these shapes which, as a human being, I know that it says 1x, meaning 9, the hermit, but as an alien, I see what's the difference between this thing, which humans call 9, the hermit, which called a number and a text. If the alien doesn't know the difference, doesn't know shit from text, it still knows that there's a difference between the fluidity of the patterns of the colors in the border and the fluidity of the patterns in the color in the inside image. That's different from the rigidity and the very delineated elements in the color. So as an alien, the first thing that I would notice is that, wait a second, there's the two most important things here is that you got an image within another image. That the only thing that rigidly stands out is something that is on the bottom border. And of course, one would say, you might say, well, all the cards are going to say, the 8 is going to be the strength or justice, the 7 is going to be the chariot. But let's say that right now I'm an alien and I'm only seeing this one. Of course, later on, if I also see the 7 and the 8 and the 11 and the 22, etc., I'd realize that all of them probably have a black border, and that do you see what I'm saying? So you were talking about, we were talking in my mind about the connectedness to everything else, and in your happiness thing, you had this thing about the politics of, happiness cannot be detached from politics, and I have some issues with that, but I really particularly keep saying that I like the fact that you understand that one's happiness must be connected to others' happiness, right? Because it's about going from the individual to the holistic, which is your primary problem with what you were saying about the self-help books that have the selfish perspective. Now, within the whole, there are elements that stand out, and so ironically, the Hermit card, from an alien perspective, if it's the first card that they see, would come to the opposite conclusion of your statement, which is that what's the first thought that strikes you when you look at the Hermit card? He's alone. That's 100% true. That's 100% true. But as I'm sure you probably state with the rest of the article, that's because we're looking at it from a human perspective. If anything, it's about connectedness to everything else. The things that, anyway, I'm getting sidetracked and I failed to quite make the point that I want to make. But let's go on with your article. Something tells me I'm gonna like it more than I'm gonna dislike it, and I'm gonna appreciate it a lot more than I'm gonna critique it. It's not a comforting card somehow. Again, now, by the way, I totally agree with your semiotic analysis of the average human being looking at this card. No doubt about it, okay? The journey looks severe, harsh, difficult, hostile. you're dead on. In terms of semiotic interpretation of what the symbols indicate to human awareness in our cultural context, you are dead on. He's wearing a cloak. He's hidden. I like the fact that you're being not only interpretive but descriptive here. He's hidden. Again, suggests an inaccessibility and perhaps secrets. What's he up to? Why trundle out like this? Why the word hermit? The word hermit certainly um, underscores your point, which I was trying to get it from, critique from a completely diametrically opposite perspective. But yeah, obviously it's hermit. Um, couldn't we have had some other figure or trope, some other, I love the way you speak, some other adventure or wonder culled from the annals of myth and history? What is it specifically about a hermit then that concentrates the primary significance of this card? And doesn't it conjure up a certain sort of remote separateness? Absolutely. Perhaps sadness. I can certainly identify with all of this. Almost certainly an escape of some sort, a retreat from others, a divorce from community. Absolutely. They're talking about me. Ergo, a type of dissatisfaction or discontent. Does it despise or at least have reservations about the common world? You had the thing in your Google Plus about. Okay, let's go past suicidal deer. I know, it's cold outside when you go outside and it's cold. I don't really like going outside. It's too peoply out there. I think this is something that needs to go with the hermit card. That's okay. Let's make this 14. Oh, I'm gonna do something weird here because I forgot to. Okay. Okay. I don't really like going outside. It's too peoply out there. Oh, I made it anyway. Okay. All right. So see, it is therapeutic for me. I feel like I'm talking to somebody. I mean, I feel like I'm talking with somebody, even though I understand that it's all in my fucking mind, but not your posts. Your posts are not in my fucking mind. Does it despise or at least have reservations about the common world and longs for something better and more fulfilling, more worthy, valuable, wiser? Yeah, he's looking for a bitch that. I hope you read my disclaimers about the word bitch. He's looking for a bitch that he can talk intellectual, tarot, happiness, mysticism with. Ideally more than one. But he's got to understand shit that he doesn't understand yet. He's working on it. He's trying to get all his cells aligned to desire, to always desire only what the universe desires for him. Historically, for humans, has been, how could God do this to me? How could God do this to the world? So they contradict themselves because they say, well, it's not God. It's the devil, and the devil is not God. But then, if God is all powerful, so they trip out, and then women have been hurt for thousands of years by men, so they can't sleep with their dads, and they can't delve in the subconscious, so they engage in a dynamic, an subconscious dynamic with men, with the most important men in their lives, or some other men, or frequently some other men, but they punish them, and therefore we have war and famine, and unwellness. But the fact of the matter is that they all mean well. And it's about having clarity about how to go from meaning well to doing well. I'm not comfortable with some of the things that I've said because that was a bad paraphrasing of an interesting psychological theory that I started to develop. In terms of this particular behavior of women that I attributed, that I've never recognized, but that I attributed to a reaction to the horrors that they've been subjected to, and the anyway, but more worthy, valuable, wiser. Okay, the despiser at least has reservation about the common world and longs for something better, more fulfilling, more worthy, valuable, wiser. You can see he wouldn't suffer fools gladly. It's not hard to imagine him clubbing idiots out of his way with that stuff. Although, okay, at least gently prodding them off the cliff or off his path. No beaten track. This path, it's his own path. Perhaps we're starting to go a little bit too much into interpretation, but than description and going. But on the other hand, we've got the well. Anyway, let's probe a little more deeply then into the hermeneutics of the hermit. Sorry, but that was utterly irresistible. We start with the bricolage of resonances summed up by the word hermit. Of course, on a note of the esoteric preamble, we might think of Hermes Trismegistus. Okay, I know. Thrice greatest, where 3 times 3 equals 9, the number of the hermit. But back down to earth and less obliquely. The very word hermit recalls at least 3 senses. 3 is I decide in next gen Terran numerology. 9 is I practice. Hermetic. Now I'm reading partly my mind. Occult. Hidden wisdom. You're saying this isn't technical factual knowledge or the mastery of a skill or a technique. Hold on. I think I would disagree with that one. The hermit is a lot more capable of being like your adventure friend, Bear Wilder or whatever. That he knows survival skills. So to think that a hermit, I think that the cultural semiotic association with the hermit as a metaphysician frequently fails to understand that if he's out there living alone in the woods, he doesn't just deal with God, he also deals with rabbits and traps and berries and eating and shelter, which are very, very physical material. And you can probably teach a thing or two to that guy in your addiction of the adventure about survival and comfort. You never see the hermit looking uncomfortable. He never seems like he's feeling cold. True, he's on a quest for uncommon wisdom, but I think what's missing from people is the understanding of his ability to deal with toiletries, weather, etc., etc., etc. But his inarticulable truths, which can't be found in the everyday, separate him or her. There's a paradox here. Okay, acedia. Thank you for explaining that. Accordingly, we could now speculatively claim that the hermit is attempting to die into life. Powerful statement. Profound statement. But very poetic in the sense that what does it mean? Beautiful though. And, and quite a gem. Okay, good reference. Time, Life, and Death. This dash ease. Is that an N dash or an M dash? In fact, I think there are three sizes. I forget what the other one is called. Hyphen, N dash, and M dash. What's he looking for in short? Spiritual plenitude and joy. The search for a restoration of a certain sort of truth. Yes, fundamental. Which she doesn't find in society. We're meant to be, how we're supposed to behave, what we're expected to aspire to, and what we should think. Oh, can you imagine if I were able to talk in person with you and I'd be able to see you? Now I'm looking at your picture.